Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what is Big JC doing with a bridle? I'll tell you what I'm not thinking. I'm not planning on doing any horse riding anytime soon. However, from the time I was a kid until I was in my mid-20s, I spent a lot of time around horses. I spent a lot of time riding horses. I actually spent a little bit of time working on a horse farm and breaking horses. And let me tell you, I am no stranger to a bridle or a saddle or any other tack. But friends, in the 3rd chapter of the book of James, James makes a reference to a bridle. And I think this will make a little bit more sense to you if you let me read this. James chapter 3, starting in the 1st verse. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers. For you know that we who teach will be judged with a greater strictness. For all of us make many mistakes. Anyone who makes no mistakes in speaking is perfect, able to keep the whole body in check with a bridle. If we put bits into the mouth of horses to make them obey us, we guide their whole bodies. Or look at ships, though they are very large, and it takes strong winds to drive them, yet they are guided with a very, very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member of the body, yet it boasts great exploits. Friends, if you've spent any time at all around horses, you know that the bridle is really the purpose of the bridle is to hold a bit in a horse's mouth so that we can control the horse using just the reins. If you've never seen a bit's no more than a few inches long, maybe a ½ inch in diameter, about the size of your pinky. But we are able to steer a horse by using a bridle and reins because the bit puts pressure in the horse's mouth and tongue and allows us to control that 600 or 800 or 1,000 pound horse by simply moving the reins. And James is proposing here that when we learn to bridle the tongue, we are able to bridle the entire body. My brothers, what I have learned in my life is that the battle that we face with sin in our lives is won or lost by what's in our hearts and what's in our minds. We do not win the battle against sin in the moment we are faced with that opportunity to sin. We win or lose that battle long before we encounter it by how we've prepared our hearts and how we've prepared our minds. James says in verse 2, for we all make many mistakes. Anyone who makes no mistakes in speaking is perfect. Brothers, we know that none of us are going to be perfect as long as we're living in the flesh. The sanctification process is never quite complete as long as we live in the flesh. But James is certainly a proponent of, and I believe the Bible clearly teaches, that we are expected to continue to try to be perfect. We should be striving for perfection in our lives, all of our lives. The Christian who is able to learn to bridle the tongue and control his own actions goes a long way towards winning the battle over the heart and the mind. And brothers, it really becomes just a simple equation of garbage in, garbage out, or good in, good out. The things that we fill our mind with, whether good or bad, will become the things that our hearts and our minds dwell upon. And if those are good and godly things, then we will learn to live good and godly lives. If those are sinful and worldly things, then we are going to live sinful and worldly lives. I challenge you to prepare and execute a strategy for living more godly lives. In short, my brothers, the way that we get there is by filling our hearts and our minds with the words of God and by spending more time in prayer with Him. Friends, as I've mentioned a few times before, the next step that we intend to make with Team Jesus Outdoors, we intend to make some opportunities to meet up with some of you guys. The first of those opportunities is going to be this November, the first full weekend in November 2020. We are going to have a gathering of TJO outdoorsmen at Lance Valentine's Teaching Fishing Weekend. This is going to be an incredible time of fishing, learning about walleye fishing, and fellowshipping with brothers in Christ. If that sounds like something any of you guys are interested in, I encourage you to drop me an email. Let me know that you're interested. I was just in communication with Lance earlier today, and the Huron, Ohio Teaching Fishing Weekend is a go. So if you are interested in joining us down there, please drop me an email and I'll share with you the details, and I'll keep you on the email list going forward. Men, God bless, tight lines, we'll see you on the water.